Today, I will continue the introduction in my language, Marathi. आज आपण सर्वजण इथे लोकमान्य टिळक पुण्यतिथी या कार्यक्रमासाठी जमलो आहोत. सर्वप्रथम मी व्यासपीठावर उपस्थित आजचे प्रमुख पाहुणे माननीय संजीव सन्याल सर यांचे स्वागत करतो. त्याचबरोबर मी शिक्षण प्रसारक मंडळीचे अध्यक्ष ॲडव्होकेट सदानंद फडके सर आणि मॅनेजिंग काउन्सिलचे चेअरमन ॲडव्होकेट एस.के. जैन सर यांचे देखील स्वागत करतो. त्याचसोबत मी महाविद्यालय विकास समितीचे अध्यक्ष श्री केशव वजे सर यांचे देखील स्वागत करतो. व्यासपीठावर उपस्थित आपले प्राचार्य डॉक्टर अविनाश मोरे यांचे देखील मी स्वागत करतो. व्यासपीठावर उपस्थित कुणाल टिळक सर यांचे देखील मी स्वागत करतो. मी वादसभा प्रमुख अरुंधती आपटे मॅडम यांचे देखील स्वागत करतो. त्याचसोबत मी इतर सर्व मान्यवर, शिक्षकेतर कर्मचारी व सर्व श्रोत्यांचे मी शब्द सुमनांनी स्वागत करतो. आज अनेक विद्यार्थी या महाविद्यालयातून शिक्षण घेऊन बाहेर पडत आहेत. आपण सगळे या वास्तूमध्ये शिक्षण घेत आहोत ते फक्त आणि फक्त लोकमान्यांच्या आपल्यावरील ऋणांमुळे. त्यांच्या याच ऋणांप्रती कृतज्ञता व्यक्त करण्यासाठी वादसभा गेली 104 वर्ष लोकमान्य टिळक पुण्यतिथी कार्यक्रमाचे आयोजन करत आहे. आजच लोकशाहीर अण्णाभाऊ साठे यांचा देखील जयंती आहे. लोकशाहीर अण्णाभाऊ साठे म्हणजेच तुकाराम भाऊराव साठे. पोवाडे, गीते, लावण्या यांची त्यांनी जनजागृतीसाठी योग्य वापर केला आणि म्हणूनच आपण त्यांना लोकशाहीर म्हणून ओळखतो. तरी मी मान्यवरांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी कृपया करून त्यांच्या प्रतिमांना फुलं अर्पण करून कार्यक्रमाची सुरुवात करावी. सो आय रिक्वेस्ट ऑल द रिस्पेक्टेड मेंबर्स to pay respects and officially begin the program. VAADASABHA has been the official debating union of the college for the past 108 years. Like every year, in the academic year 2024-25, VAADASABHA successfully organized the Lokmanya Tilak Punyatithi program, yearly auditions, late edition of memorial elocution competition, late PG Sahasrabuddhe national level elocution competition, farewell program and 2 workshops. In the previous academic year, the students of VAADASABHA participated in more than 200 competitions and won prizes in more than 90 of them. I request VAADASABHA in charge Arundhati Apte ma'am to give us an introduction into today's program.
Thank you, Ashmit. Our chief guest today, Honorable Sanjeev Sanyal sir, Member Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, Government of India, and our dignitaries from SP Mandali, Advocate Sadananda Farke, Advocate S.K. Jain, our CDC Chairman Shri Ashok Vazay sir, our newly appointed Principal Dr. Avinash Moril sir, and all other dignitaries, my colleagues and the students who have come from other colleges and also my students. I welcome you all for today's program, Lokmanya Tilak Punyatithi program, which we have been organizing for the past 105 years. Pune has been a central or a hub of all social political movements for the past many centuries. Especially during the British colonial regime, the scholars, intellectuals and social reformers established a tradition of Vaad Vivad or debate that has initiated and encouraged the discussions on nationalism, social justice, economic policies, which were implemented at that time by British. Lokmanya Tilak was one of the key figures in this movement. Living up to that legacy, VAADASABHA in SV College, which was started in 1960, very warmly pays tribute to this great visionary leader and orator who has been instrumental in the establishment of this college. The platform VAADASABHA or Debating Union today has become the best practice in NAC terminology and has provided a unique opportunity to the students of a learning which is outside the classroom, a learning which is based on peer-to-peer learning, experiential learning. So we are very proud to have this legacy in our college. We also pay tribute to the great poet and a shahir, Annabhau Sathe, on his birth anniversary. He has been a reformer who ignited minds of the downtrodden class through his povadas and led a movement of social reforms. SV Mandali and SV College are truly honored to have Honorable Sanyal sir for today's program. As a personal admirer of Honorable Sanyal, I feel privileged to have him today with us. True to the ethos of NEP, sir will be delivering his talk on Bharat, the origins of our civilizational identity. We all are excited to listen to Honorable Sanyal. I welcome Sanyal sir and all others in this hall for today's program. Thank you.
धन्यवाद मॅम. आजचे प्रमुख पाहुणे माननीय संजीव सान्याल सर यांचा सत्कार करण्याची मी संस्थेचे अध्यक्ष ॲडव्होकेट सदानंद फडके सर यांना विनंती करणार. त्यामुळे मी आय रिक्वेस्ट द डिग्निटरीज टू फेलिसिटेट मिस्टर सान्याल. Mr. Sanyal is presented with a bouquet, a memento, and a book, The Orion, written by Bal Gangadhar Tilak himself. मी ॲडव्होकेट सदानंद फडके सर यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी कॉलेजचे नवीन प्राचार्य डॉक्टर अविनाश मोरे यांचा देखील सत्कार करावा. यानंतर मी संस्थेचे मॅनेजिंग काउन्सिलचे अध्यक्ष ॲडव्होकेट SK जैन सरांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी आपले मनोगत व्यक्त करावे.
ऑनरेबल श्री सान्यालजी, संस्थेचे अध्यक्ष ॲडव्होकेट फडके, CDC चेअरमन अशोक वजे सर, SV कॉलेजचे नवीन प्रिन्सिपल आज ज्यांनी चार्ज घेतलाय अविनाश मोरेल सर, व्हाईस प्रिन्सिपल औचट मॅडम, ज्यांच्या नावाने आणि ज्यांच्या कर्तृत्व भारत नाही तर जगात पसरलेले लोकमान्य टिळकांच्या नातू करण तिलक, उपस्थित सर्व विद्वत आणि सर्वजण उपस्थित बंधूंनो भगिनींनो, I think we are having a great occasion to have Sri Sanyalji to address us on this debate competition. Sri Sanyalji is an economic advisor to Prime Minister of India. He is one of the key persons to fulfill the dream of Honorable Prime Minister to make India as the third economic power in the world. I think that we are fortunate that with all this busy schedule, he has accepted our invitations and remained present on these occasions, perhaps to pay regard to Lokmanya Tilak and to make aware of the various programs of the Government of India, how they are going to meet the challenge of the changes at national and international levels. Certainly, sir, we will be guided by your address. This is the beginning so far as this debate competition is concerned. लोकमान्य टिळकांचं पुण्यतिथी निमित्त एक गोष्ट सांगतो, म्हणजे त्यांचे गुण आपल्या पुणेकरांना महाराष्ट्राला माहिती नाही असं किंवा त्यांच्याबद्दल सांगणं सुद्धा अवघड होईल. पण आपल्या संस्थेच्या संबंधित म्हणजे आपल्या सर्वांना माहितीच असावं की त्यागाचे प्रतीक म्हणजे ते हुशार होते, ते वकील होते, ते खूप राष्ट्राचे नेते होते वगैरे, हे सर्व आहेतच. पण त्यागाचे प्रतीक हे सांगण्याचं कारण असं की त्यावेळेचं त्यांचा आपसातला काही भेद मतभेद असतील ते सॉल्व पंडित फॅमिलीचे लोकमान्यांनी केले होते. वकील म्हणून किंवा इतर गोष्टींनी त्यांना खूप आग्रह करण्यात आलं होतं की तुम्ही तुमची फी घ्या. एखादा वकील असता तर पहिले आपली फी सोडली नसती आणि मग उपदेश दिला असता की तुम्ही फार केलं, अमक केलं, तमक केलं. त्यांनी काय करावं तर म्हणजे दोनदा त्यांनी नाही म्हटलं आणि शेवटी म्हटलं माझी फीस द्यायची असेल तर ही जी तुमची जागा आहे ती शिक्षण प्रसारक म्हटल्या 1 रुपया भाड्याने 99 वर्ष द्या. म्हणजे स्वतःसाठी नाही तर समाजासाठी, राष्ट्रासाठी त्यागाचे प्रतीक म्हणजे बाकी अनेक गुणमध्ये त्यागाचे प्रतीक हे आपल्या समोर सांगावं असं मला वाटतं. जो आपल्याकडे असायला हवं किंवा आपल्याला मिळणार आहे त्याच्यात त्याग करणारा त्याचीच पूजा केली जाते, त्यांचाच वंदन केलं जातं. And he the persons who command respect. He doesn't demand respect, but command respect from all over the world. So I also pay my tribute on these occasions, and certainly I welcome Sanyalji again, and I hope that it will be one of the best part that we will be guided from your address. I welcome our new principal, Avinashji. Under his leadership, certainly the college will progress with the fast speed. I also pay my regards to Shri Sunil Gaikwad, former principal of the SP College, a symbol of modesty with, I can say that expert in his field. With all these things, I have never seen him arrogancy or even he has raised the voice. Whatever he want to say, he has assertively said, but with a polite form. So with all these things are concerned, we participants are waiting more for Sanyalji's address, and so I don't want to take even 1 second more to remain between you and Sanyalji. Sanyalji, again I welcome on behalf of Shikshan Prasarak Mandali and SP College and this debating committee who is organizing this. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
धन्यवाद सर. दरवर्षी आपल्या कार्यक्रमात सचिल विद्यार्थी पुरस्काराची घोषणा करण्यात येते. तरी मी वादसभा सचिव रमेश कचरे याला आमंत्रित करतो की त्यांनी या वर्षीचे पुरस्कार विजेते घोषित करावे.
नमस्कार. वादसभेच्या वतीने दरवर्षी दिनांक 1 ऑगस्ट रोजी लोकमान्य टिळक पुण्यतिथी कार्यक्रमाचे आयोजन करण्यात येते. या वर्षी या कार्यक्रमामध्ये गोडबोले परिवारातर्फे महाविद्यालयाच्या कला, शास्त्र व वाणिज्य शाखांमधील प्रत्येकी एका विद्यार्थ्याला सत्शील विद्यार्थी पुरस्काराने गौरवण्यात येते. या पुरस्कारासाठी विद्यार्थ्याची निवड त्यांची शैक्षणिक गुणवत्ता, वर्गातील हजेरी, वर्तन, सामाजिक जाणीव, अभ्यासेतर उपक्रमांमधील सहभाग आदी गुणांच्या आधारे करण्यात येते. तरी हे पुरस्कार मी पुढील प्रमाणे जाहीर करीत आहे. कैलासवासी राव बहादूर बापू हरी गोडबोले स्मृती सत्शील विद्यार्थी पुरस्कार. हा पुरस्कार कुमारी टीना नंदकिशोर तांबडे, तृतीय वर्ष, कला शाखा हिला प्रदान करण्यात येत आहे. मी कुमारी टीना नंदकिशोर तांबडे हिला विनंती करतो की तिने हा पुरस्कार मान्यवरांच्या हस्ते स्वीकारावा. आजचे प्रमुख पाहुणे संजीव सान्याल सर यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी हा पुरस्कार द्यावा. कैलासवासी कमलाबाई ओक स्मृती सत्शील विद्यार्थी पुरस्कार प्रदान करण्यात येत आहे. कुमार दुर्वेश सूर्यकांत पाटणे, पदव्युत्तर विभाग, विज्ञान शाखा. मी कुमार दुर्वेश सूर्यकांत पाटणे याला विनंती करतो की त्यांनी मान्यवरांच्या हस्ते हा पुरस्कार स्वीकारावा. मी शिक्षण प्रसारक मंडळाचे अध्यक्ष ऍडव्होकेट सदानंद फडके सर यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी हा पुरस्कार द्यावा. कैलासवासी सुशीलाबाई निळकंठ गोडबोले स्मृती सत्शील विद्यार्थी पुरस्कार. हा पुरस्कार कुमार निखिल नारायण कांबळे, तृतीय वर्ष, बीबीए विभाग याला प्रदान करण्यात येत आहे. मी मान्यवरांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी हा पुरस्कार निखिल नारायण कांबळे याला प्रदान करावा. तो अनुपस्थित आहे, पण त्यांनी नंतर हा पुरस्कार प्राचार्यांच्या हस्ते स्वीकारावा. सर्व मान्यवरांचे मी आभार मानतो आणि सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांना खूप खूप शुभेच्छा. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद रमेश. यानंतर आता मी आजच्या प्रमुख पाहुण्यांचा परिचय करून देण्यासाठी वादसभा सचिव अस्मी खांडेकर हिला आमंत्रित करतो.
Good morning everyone present here. I extend my warm wishes to all the honorable dignitaries, to all the respected faculty members and to the dear students. Today I stand here with utmost reverence and admiration to welcome a visionary, a luminary, a trailblazer, an urban theorist and an economic savant, but above all a true Bharatiya at heart. Honorable Sanjeev Sanyal sir, a member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable Sir started his journey as an alumnus of prestigious universities and colleges such as the Xavier's College at Kolkata, Delhi University and Oxford University to name few, where he has been the recipient of multiple coveted scholarships and fellowships such as the Rhodes Scholarship and the Eisenhower Fellowship. Prior to holding the office of ESC, he served as the principal economic advisor to the Honorable Finance Minister. His economic expertise are evident through his pivotal work as the architect of the G20 Action Plan, which acted as the blueprint for the functioning of the world economy during the pandemic. He was also the co-chair of the G20 Framework Working Group. Furthermore, he has represented India on numerous international forums such as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, and the G7. His economic strides are not restricted to the public sector. He has spent over 2 decades in international financial markets as the chief economist of the South and Southeast Asia, and later as the global strategist and managing director at Deutsche Bank. With his monumental contributions to the world of economics and governance, Honorable Sir has been recipient of numerous prestigious accolades like the inaugural International Indian Achievers Award, KPS Menon Memorial Award, and many more. He has also been named the Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum in 2010. In addition to being an accomplished economist, Honorable Sir is a true academician and writer at heart. With his unique blend of economics and history, Sir has written over 300 articles and columns in various international publications, along with best-selling titles like The Land of the Seven Rivers, The Indian Renaissance, and other pieces of literary treasure trove. Coming towards the end, I would like to present a quote of our guest of honor himself, which goes, "The notion of nationhood is not a simple one. It has meant different things for different people in different points of time. Bearing this in mind, without much further ado, I would like to invite Honorable Sanjeev Sanyal Sir to please grace the dais and walk us all through the journey of our origins of our civilized nation identity. Thank you."
We can dim the lights on the other side and it will be brighter, that's all. Yeah, somebody can do that. Is the slides clear? Yeah? Okay. So let me begin first by thanking the management, the faculty and the students of SP College for inviting me to be here today. Today is of course a special day because it's of course, as you know, the Punyatithi of Lokmanya Tilak, and we have I think his great-grandson here, great-great-grandson here on the stage at the end. It is also the very first day of your new principal, so please give him a round of applause. So what I'm going to talk about today is a topic which I think Lokmanya Tilak would have been very interested in, which is the issue of the origins of our civilizational identity. This was a topic that was of great interest at the end of the 19th century and early 20th century because we were under colonial rule at that time, and so many of the writings at that time of our nationalist leaders were to go back and begin to dig into the origins of it. Of course, our knowledge has grown since then because we have much more evidence from archaeology and satellite photography, etc. And I'll give you a sense of how we now think about our national identity from the evidence that we have gathered over the century that has passed since then. So, what I'm going to do is to get into why is it that we consider ourselves a nation at all. Once they had settled their control over the subcontinent, was to simply deny that we were a civilization at all. So you have, for example, John Stratty, who was the acting viceroy of India in 1872. He says, "The first and most essential thing to learn about India is there is not and never was an India." Now the question is, why was there an East India Company then, if there is no India? Winston Churchill similarly says, "India is a geographical term. It's no more united a nation than the equator." So basically what they are doing, you see, is very simple, is that when you are occupying another country and want to perpetuate your occupation, the first and obvious thing to do is to simply deny that there was a nation that you are occupying. And if you think they only did it to us, let me assure you, colonial powers, not just the British, the French, the Dutch, everybody, one of the first things they would do after occupying a country is to declare it something called terra nullius, which is empty country, literally means that. So that it means that you can treat the people who exist there before you turned up and say that there was nobody there. So for example, when the British occupied Australia, they declared it terra nullius. Now obviously there were people living there. So what they did is simply to assume that those people were not really a civilization or a people, settled people. And to do that, you have to create a legal fiction called terra nullius. So in fact, well into the 20th century, the Australian Aboriginals were actually treated under the wildlife law. The bizarre thing is, we are now 78 years after independence, and many of these lies that the colonial period were sprouting for their obvious reasons are very often continued to today. So, ironically, I have to come here in 2025 and stand here in front of an audience of Indians and make the case for India as a civilization. And I think it is important to do this because if we do not tell the next generation, you will default back to these colonial tropes because, of course, the colonizers may have gone, but the interests that do not want us to rise again as a nation still exist. So here goes. So the question first arises that where is this, we call ourselves the Bharatiya people, where does this term originally come from? What is the oldest origin of this term? And it turns out that the very origin, the first place we know of where this term Bharata was used is actually in the Rig Veda. And the Rig Veda is the oldest extant text in India. We do not know how old it is, but as I will show you, it is at least 4,000 years old. Most likely it is more than 5,500 years old. And this text, which was originally oral and then written down later, basically refers to a Vedic tribe called Bharata, or also Trutsu. By the way, there is another name many people do not know, which we have, the Bharata Trutsu tribe, which was a relatively small tribe which we know was living along a river called the Saraswati river. Now this river is very important because the Saraswati river is repeatedly mentioned in the Rig Veda. It is the most mentioned geographical feature in the Rig Veda. So it is mentioned 45 times in the hymns, it's mentioned in 45 of the hymns and mentioned 72 times. And it was obviously a major geographical feature because it is called Sindhu Mata, which is the mother of cities. It's called limitless, unbroken, swift flowing, the great flood. So it was obviously a very major geographical feature and of great importance to this tribe living on its banks in what is the general area that we now know as Haryana. Okay? Now, even today we remember this link because if you do Saraswati Puja, the last line that you have in the end of the puja is Bhagwati Bharati Devi Namaste. So Saraswati Puja always ends with the incantation. So the river Saraswati, which we now later on became the goddess of knowledge, is still even today remembered as Bharati. So this link to the Bharatas is very, very old. Now the question immediately arises, okay, so there was this river and there was a small tribe living next to it, but where was this river? Now, one of the things that very often the colonial era historians and then later on those who denied the Indian nationhood try to say that it's somewhere in Central Asia or maybe it's a figment of people's imagination. All kinds of arguments are given to place either the Saraswati is something mythical or somewhere in Central Asia or some such place, as long as it's not in India. Now, frankly, there is no scope for debate in the matter because in the Nadi Stuti Suktam of the Rig Veda, which you can check yourself, the exact position of the Saraswati is mentioned. Because in this hymn, the rivers of India are enumerated, northern India at this stage are enumerated from east to west. Okay? And so they go as follows. O Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Shatudru, which is Satluj, Parushni, Ravi, Askini, Chenab, and so on. So you can very clearly see that the Yamuna is between, the Saraswati is between the Yamuna and the Satluj. There is no debate, you cannot debate the matter because it is clearly stated in the Rig Veda, and I have given you, in everything that I will state, I will give you the exact book, the hymn and verse. So you can check it yourself, you don't have to take my word for it. So, the Saraswati is between the Yamuna and the Shatudru. We also know from the Rig Veda, another stanza, that pure is her course from the mountains to the ocean, alone the streams of Saraswati had listened. Which means it was a river that ran from the mountains to the ocean. Now this is a problem here because today there is no river that exists with this definition, which is between the Yamuna and the Satluj and runs from the mountains to the ocean. But was there ever a river like this in India? Well, it turns out there was. And there is more than adequate evidence of this, because if you look at satellite photographs, you can see the green line there. That is the paleo channel of a river that clearly dried up, and we have dates for it, which I'll come to. And you can see that it used to flow from somewhere in the mountain, from just north of Chandigarh, through what is now Haryana. It had a large number of tributaries, and then it went through what is the Thar, and at different points in time, it, by the way, shifted course. So it's not one course, it has shifted course, and maybe that is why it had the name as Mother of Floods, because it used to shift course. And then ultimately it ends up in the what is now the Run of Kutch. And it is very important to remember that the Run of Kutch, which today is these salt flats, did not look like this during the Bronze Age. You have to know this because you see the sea level at that time was higher, and the river that you can see used to flow into this, not only this river but also the Indus, which used to flow somewhat east of where it does today, into the estuary. And the Run of Kutch is actually the original estuary of the Saraswati and the Indus. And the salt flats you see are the result of the drying up of this, of that estuary. Because so this is where it used to be. In fact, if you had gone there 5,000 years ago, it would have looked a lot more like the Sundarbans looks like today. So, which is why when you look at Harappan seals, you'll see something interesting. There are no lions. Today we think of Gujarat with lions, but in the Harappan seals there are no lions. There are only tigers, which are wet country hunters. Lions are dry country hunters. So the climate of this region was totally different. And it fixed another thing, which is that most of the Harappan sites are not along the Indus. So we call it the Indus Valley civilization, but in fact, as you can see, most of the sites are actually along the dry riverbed of this river that we now know as the Ghaggar. So this dry riverbed still exists. During the monsoons, if we went right now, it still flows in the upper reaches, not all the way. And most of these sites are actually, both on the Indian side and on the Pakistani side, are along the dry riverbed of this river. Now we know now from geological surveys, which Lokmanya Tilak would not have known at that time, that this river basically flowed for a period of time, but at its height between 9,000 years ago and about 5,000 years ago. Then it began to dry, and about 4,000 odd years ago, that's about 2000 BC, it completely dried up, and the whole civilization, the Saraswati Indus civilization, collapsed. So we know that climate change caused this because there is now adequate evidence for this. But it is important to know the landscape that I am dealing with. Now, when you go back to the Rig Veda, one of the things that comes through from it is that not only did the Vedic people, the Bharatas, live along this river, they had a name for their original homeland. So the original name of the original homeland that they have is Sapta Sindhu or Sapta Sindhuva. Why is this important? Because it says, it literally means the land of the seven rivers. Those who have read my second book, it's called Land of Seven Rivers. It's derived from Sapta Sindhu. So the problem here is, which is those seven rivers? Because the Rig Veda assumes that everybody knows what the land of the seven rivers is, so it never actually tells you what those seven rivers are. So many historians lazily assume that this relates to the five rivers of the Punjab, the Indus, Sindhu, plus the Saraswati. That gives you the seven. Actually, this does not fit the evidence. When you read the Rig Veda, it says, coming together gloriously, loudly roaring Saraswati, mother of floods, the seventh with copious milk, with fair streams strongly flowing, fully swelled by the volume of their waters. It is very obvious from this that you are not dealing with other river systems but with one river system, i.e. all these six other rivers are essentially flowing into the Saraswati. These are tributaries of the Saraswati. So you are dealing with a much smaller area than we originally think. These are essentially the these are 7 rivers that come together to form the Saraswati River. You're looking at tributaries of the same river system. Now what this means is you're dealing with a very small area, essentially today's Haryana. And this is also corroborated by the evidence from later texts. So in later texts, it's very interesting. The Mahabharata mentions the 2 interesting things. First of all, it tells us that the Saraswati River dried up. Okay? That it was there is already in the Mahabharata a clear mention that the river has dried up. And the reason we know this is that Balram, the elder brother of Lord Krishna, he did not participate in the Kurukshetra war. He got disgusted by these cousins who were fighting amongst themselves, and he went on a tirth. And he basically started along the banks of the Saraswati River when he did this. Interestingly, he mentions that the river is actually dried up because he says that the river goes into the desert and disappears in a place called Vinashana. So already you can see climate change is happening, the rainfall is declining, Western India is desiccating, this river no longer flows to the ocean anymore. But interestingly, he also leaves us the names of those 7 rivers. So he mentions, and again I've given you exactly which book, Shalya Parva, and which chapter, and you can look it up. It says the 7 streams of the Saraswati are Suparva, Kanchanakshi, Vishala, Manorama, Ughavati, Surenu, and Vimala, Dukha. So these are the 7 streams that come together to create the Sapta Saraswati. So again, the idea of 7 rivers as a homeland. And he says that the Saraswati, so we don't know where all these 7 rivers are because they have all disappeared now. But we know the location of at least where one of them used to flow. So it says the Saraswati, full of sacred waters, flows at Kurukshetra under the name of Oghavati. So we know it in Kurukshetra, and there is a riverbed, dry riverbed in Kurukshetra. If you go and visit it, you will see it. There is some part of it is considered a sacred tal even today, and there's a festival of taking a dip there. That is the river Oghavati. So we know that one of them used to flow. So again, what are we finding? A dry river system and essentially Haryana. So now the question comes, if what we are dealing with is a very small tribe living in what is today's Haryana, how did the rest of us come to consider ourselves to be Bharatiya and name ourselves after this very small Haryanvi tribe? You are not from Haryana, I am not from Haryana. So why are we? And to understand this, you need to understand the only clear political event that you can discern from the Vedic texts. It is very, very important. It's mentioned repeatedly in the Vedic texts and in later texts as well, but particularly in the Vedic texts. And it's called the Battle of 10 Kings. So what is going on in the Battle of 10 Kings? What happens is that the Bharatas, during the time of a chieftain called Sudasa, who was a descendant of Devoda, another great king called Devodasa. So at the time of Sudasa, he and his guru, Rishi Vasishtha, faced a major crisis, which is that a coalition and declared himself the Chakraartin. Chakraartin is, Chakra is of course a wheel, and he became the Chakraartin. So the person who can ride his chariot in any direction he wants. So he is the Chakraartin Samrat. But is it because of this political context that we consider ourselves to be Bharatiya? No. It is because of what he did next, which is quite unique. What he did is, after this, he convened some sort of a conference, you can say, of all the thinkers, poets, religious leaders, philosophers, etc., of all the tribes. Not only of his own tribe, but also of the defeated tribes, and all of the tribes that he was in contact with at that point in time. And they basically convened all their best knowledge into the Samhitas. That Samhita is a coalition, is a compilation, and this is basically what we now know as the Vedas. So the Rig, the Sam, the Yajur, and later on the Atharva are essentially the compilation of the ideas, of best ideas of the times. And it doesn't only come from the Bharatas. In fact, interestingly, the people who have the largest sort of contribution to the Vedas are actually not Vasishtha's family, who are the winning tribe, but Bhrigu and Vishwamitra. In fact, the Gayatri Mantra is done under the school of Vishwamitra. Is his school that contributed it. So, what happens as a result is amazing, is that as a result of this, the first prototype, the operational principle of Indian civilization is established, which is that of assimilation as opposed to imposition. And I am not just sort of reading the book and trying to, maybe this is the case. It is explicitly written in the Rig Veda itself that we have this coming together of the tribes. They take all their gods and put it in one common pool where everybody respects everybody else's god. So this is a very unique model, because remember, in those times and in later times, whenever one tribe defeated another tribe, they said, look, our gods must be more powerful than your gods, so you must now worship our gods. Here is a different conception where we say everybody's gods have to be respected. And this is then done, it is there in many places in the Rig Veda, this sort of creation of this model is mentioned, but it is most explicitly mentioned in the very last chant of the Rig Veda, where it states that all the ancient gods have a place around the Yajna fire. It says, assemble, speak together, let your minds be of one accord. As all the ancient gods have taken their rightful seat around the fire, the place is common, common the assembly, common the mind, so be your thoughts united. This is a very common chant, many of you probably know. It's called the Samanasya Suttam. A common purpose do I lay before you, and together we make offerings to the fire. United your resolve, may your minds come together, united the thoughts of all, that we may happily agree. This is the underlying operating system of our civilization. This is the civilizational contract. And it is such a powerful idea that it begins to spread. So at some point in time, this spread to all over the country. So my forefathers at some point in time, sitting in Bengal, also said this is a good idea. Now, I don't know, I am a Shakta, I am a worshipper of female deities primarily. So it's possible that we also contributed Durga, Kali and others to the common pool. And that's how everybody around the country, it's possible that from here, I don't know, maybe Ganesh and Bhavani, etc. And so you begin to see interconnections happening across the country of a civilizational ethos. And by the Puranic period, it becomes very explicit. So in the Puranic period, the idea of Sapta Sindhu spreads. So as I told you, the Sapta Sindhu originally is only Haryana. But by the Puranic period, so we are now somewhere in the Iron Age, maybe 5th century BC. I'm just guessing. But you see, the Puranic texts are written from about 7th, 8th century BC into the Christian period, 5th, 6th century into the Christian period. So over 1,000-year period. And in all of them, you have a description of the landscape of a country. And there, the Sapta Sindhu is mentioned with different rivers. So I'm going to give you a chant which many of you may know is very commonly done, many of you may know it for ritual bathing, which goes somewhat like this. Gange cha Yamunai chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalasmin Sandhinin Kuru. Now notice here, you have Ganga Yamuna, which is there in the original. You also have Saraswati. But you now have Godavari, you now have Narmade, Sindhu is there, Kaveri is there. So the entire subcontinent has now got covered by this landscape. The Sapta Sindhu is now a larger landscape. The idea of who the Bharatas are has now become the whole subcontinent. And it is there repeatedly. So, for example, the same text, Brahma Purana, I'm using Vivek Debroy's translation, but you can all go there, look at exactly these lines, chapters, etc. It mentions again the Varsha, i.e. the land that is north of the ocean and south of the Himalayas is known as Bharata, and the people there are known as Bharati. So you again clearly states who are the Bharatas. It also states who are our neighbors. So, for example, it says the Kiratas, who are the Tibeto-Burman people, live to the east, and the Yavanas, i.e. the Greeks, live to the west. So we now can date this when Brahma Purana was written. This must have been immediately after Alexander's invasion, because the Greeks at that point are living to the west. Of course, the Tibeto-Burmans still live to our east. So this is the landscape again. It is also interesting that it is not just the rivers. They also have the same thing: 7 rivers, 7 mountain ranges, and so on. So here are the 7 mountain ranges, and by the way, all the Puranas have some similar sort of description. Here I am using again Brahma Purana just for consistency. It says the 7 mountain ranges of Bharata are Mahendra, which is eastern Ghats; Malaya, which is southwestern Ghats, which we now call Nilgiris; the Sahya, which is Sahyadris, you are right there, northern western Ghats; Suktimat, which is not clear to me, my guess is that it's the Aravalis; the Riksha, which is the Satpuras; the Vindhyas, which in the original text was actually the eastern Vindhyas only, and the Pariyatra, which is the western Vindhyas. They meet in what is now Vindhyachal, just near Varanasi, Mirzapur. So again, you can see the 7 mountain systems. Now, if you happen to be from the northeast and you're feeling left out, don't worry, people remember you. They say that there are those who reside in the east, such as the inhabitants of Kamarupa. So there is a clear conscious understanding that there is northeast and the people there mentioned, such as the people of Kamarupa. There are others who live there as well. Now, at some point in time in this discussion, somebody says, but what about the Dravidians? So let me tell you a little bit about the Dravidians. The oldest Tamil texts literature that exists is the collection of poetry in Old Tamil called the Sangam literature. This was compiled somewhere between the 2nd century BC and the 2nd century AD. Now, the oldest text of that is called the Tolkappiyam. Okay, not making it up, you can Google all this information up yourself. The Tolkappiyam is a grammatical text. Okay, it writes the grammar. In that grammar, and in the preface of that grammar, it states, in the virtuous Tamil-speaking land that extends from Venkatam in the south to Kumari Venkatam in the north to Kumari in the south. Kumari is obviously Kanyakumari, and Venkatam is the Tirumala Hills, which is today in Andhra Pradesh, where it's at the border. So you can actually draw the map of Tamil Nadu even today with this description. And in the same preface, it states that the text is in the wisdom of the four Vedas rooted. Now, why is this important? That this is the oldest known proclamation of Tamil identity that exists. There is no older Tamil identity proclaimed anywhere, and there it states that this identity is rooted in Vedic civilization. So if there is a Tamil identity, it is rooted in Vedic civilization. So by the time Tamil identity became clear, it was essentially a part of Bharatiya civilization. There is no way of getting around this. And it is not like we have forgotten the Haryanvis. In later times also, the land between the Saraswati and the Drishadruti, which is today the dry river bed of the Khaggar and the dry river bed of the Chautang, which is basically modern Haryana, it is known that this is the Brahmavarta, the land of the gods. Basically, we still remember that there's something special about this area. We still remember it, and of course, archaeology now shows that this area is where the largest concentration of Iron Age and Harappan sites are, including the very biggest one, which is Rakhigadi. But there are many in that area, Kali Bangan, this, that. Now, there is this Suda's story, and that is there, is well established, and you can read it in the Vedas. But there are other stories of how the name of Bharatvarsha came about. Now, the later traditions are interesting. And remember that this is coming thousands of years later. So by the time the Itihasas, etc. have been written, thousands of years have passed between the Vedic Sudasa period, which is, my guess is, in the early Harappan period, 5,000 years, 6,000 years ago. And by the time we are in the Vedic period, which is maybe 3,000 years ago. Thousands of years have passed, the language has changed. The language of the Vedas, by the way, is completely different from the language of the Mahabharata. Only 50% of the words are the same. By this time, and in later Puranic and other texts, there is the legend of Raja Bharat. This is not to be considered, this is not to be confused with the Bharat of the Ramayana. Also not to be confused with the Bharat of, who is the Kalidasa's Bharat, who is the Shakuntala and Dushyant's son. This is an earlier Bharat, who was the descendant also of great kings. One of them was Nabhi, and also of Rishabh. Now, so the son of Rishabh and the grandson of Nabhi. Now, why these are important is also that India actually has another name, because Nabhi is also supposed to have conquered the entire subcontinent. So India has another name, Nabhi Varsha. His son Rishabh was a great conqueror, but then he got disillusioned with warfare, and he became the founder of the Jain tradition. And his son again went back to being a great king, Bharat, after whom also another tradition of Bharatvarsha is there. He also conducted the Ashwamedha and the Rajasuya Yagyas and declared himself the Chakraartin. Now the question is there a link between Sudasa and Bharat? I do not know, because these are two traditions, but there are clearly some parallels. Very often a king is known by the name of his tribe, as you know. So maybe Bharat was not his actual name, but it was known by the name of his tribe, the Bharatas. Just like Sudasa, he conducted a Ashwamedha Yagya, converted and declared himself to be a Chakraartin. He was a great conqueror and so on. It's possible that there were two separate characters who did similar things, or by the time of the Mahabharata, they were already beginning to forget the original stories, and so this is a garbled memory of the original Sudas. Now, I do not know the link between the two. This is an area of research somebody should take up. But whichever way you think the story went, it is important that the symbol of the Chakraartin became the symbol of the great king. And it is there, consequently, in many places, then was incorporated by Buddhists into their thing, because then Buddha became the Chakraartin in the spiritual field. So the symbol of the chakra is used. But the symbol of the chakra is there in the Jain tradition. It is there in the Vedic, later Puranic tradition as well. So the symbol of the chakra is very important. And of course, it is there even today. The Mauryan chakra is there in our national flag. It is a symbol of the Indian state, and it is a symbol of sovereign power. So in a sense, we still remember Sudasan in our national flag, symbol of the Chakraartin. Now, this is our internal story of how we are becoming a nation, how the identity is evolving. What do other people think of it?